Hey Computational Thinking. In this video we're going to be going over the first homework of the year, which was all about variables. Let's get right down to it. You know, the best thing about making these videos is trying to figure out where I should be on the screen. In this case, I'm actually in the instructions. Perfect. The teacher is in the instructions. Anyway, beside that terrible comment, let's talk about expressions in the shell. Now, it's kind of hard for you to see my screen here, so let's zoom in. Cool. All right. Now, with this particular assignment, all I wanted you to do was do some experimentation over here in the shell. The first thing you might have thought as a student, though, when you saw this assignment was like, whoa, that's a lot of instructions. Okay? I get it. It is a lot of instructions. The truth of the matter is, this class is difficult. It is a challenging class. And programming's kind of tough to learn. There's a lot to learn. Maybe that's the thing. There's a lot to learn about a little bit of stuff, because most of you have never dealt with all this technical jargon and things like that before. And as I told you when we first met, I don't really care about the jargon. I don't really care about you knowing the definition for every single bit of terminology that I share with you. But I do need you to learn how to code. And that's going to involve you following more and more complex instructions as the year goes on. I need to move myself out of the instructions. Speaking of which, I'll move right here. Or here. Yeah, this is good. Now you won't be able to see. Where should I go? I'm going to go here. Okay. So, with that being said, I need you to take your time. I need you to not wait until the last minute. Because here's what happens. I don't necessarily blame you for waiting for the I don't like blame you for procrastinating, because I procrastinate too. What will hurt you, what will be painful in your brain, in your body, create anxiety, is if you wait to the last minute and you have to read all the instructions, you're going to say things like, I'm not reading all these instructions. There's no way. There's no way I can do this in the amount of time that I have, just because there is so much. The truth of the matter is, this assignment right here is the easiest thing you will do all year. And all it involves is typing some stuff in the shell. But along the way, I want you to know this other information. Like, I need you to know you might create an error, and what should I do if I run into that error? Should I try again? Should I just stop and call Mr. Tennyson? What is the shell? Like, what does that even mean? Like, you need to know that this thing over here is the shell. That's a pretty important part of this assignment. So my point is, just take your time and read the instructions, because you know you can read. And if you don't know the meaning of a word, if a word is just like really bugging you, Google it. I do that all the time. There's words I don't know. I Google those words and find out what they are. So do that. A lot of this class is about learning on your own, and actually just learning how to learn in the first place, which is something we sometimes struggle with. So let's get right down to it. All we're doing for this assignment is acknowledging that this thing right here is the shell, and we want to type some stuff into it to see what happens. Now, the things that we are going to type in are called expressions, but that's not the most important thing. So let's just get right to it. 2 plus 2. It's 4, right? Come on, Python. It's literally going this slow. Wow. Okay, 2 minus 2. Now we have the server's attention. Thank you, Replo. I'll go ahead and raise this up a little bit. 3 times 3. Now, when you do 3 double asterisk or double star 3, you should realize, oh, that's to the power of. So 3 to the power of 3 is 27. 4 divided by 4, that's going to be 1.0. What type is that? What is type 4 divided by 4? It's a float. Cool. What about 4 double slash 4? That's just 1. So what is type double slash? An integer. Okay. So here is one of the first things that we might want to note that's a little different about programming math. Sometimes in programming, we want integer division, which is what this is right here, meaning the result will ultimately be an integer. Sometimes what we want is float division, or just regular division, and that's 4 divided by 4 giving us 1.0. Now what if I say something like 5 divided by 4? That's 1.25 with float division, but 5 integer division 4, well, it rounds down. This is also called floor division, but we won't talk about the concepts of math.floor or math.ceiling until much later. So no worries on that. Now I want to show you a quick trick here. If you are getting overwhelmed by the amount of things that you have in the shell, you can click this little button right here, and clear them on out, which is pretty neat. Okay, we left off at 4 integer division 4. I asked you to see what's the difference. Now we've got this percent sign, so 12%, oops, 12% 4, 0. What about 12% 5? Now this little guy right here is actually called the modulo operator. Modulo is deserving of its own lesson, so I'm not going to go in depth onto what modulo is in this lesson, but what you should observe, the simplest explanation, is that it gives you the remainder of a division operation. So 5 goes into 12 2 times, making 10. What's left over? 2. 5 does not go into 2. So ultimately, modulo division, or that percent sign, which we call modulo in programming, modulo, is all about giving us the remainder of a division operation. It has other purposes, but we won't get into those right now. All right, Pemdas, right? The order of operations, Pemdas, or parentheses, exponents, if I could spell, multiplication and division, addition and subtraction, subtraction, if you will. These apply just like they would in regular math, and there we go, we get an error. A syntax error, that means we typed something incorrectly. Anytime we see a syntax error, that means the syntax was invalid. The syntax is how we type things in Python, so if I'm missing a quote, for example, around a string, well, in that case, I'll get an end of line while scanning string literal, but it's still a syntax error, okay, because I forgot my extra little quote. Boom. All right, let me clear this out. Let's look at this PEMDAS expression. 2 plus 3 times 6. Now, predict with me, right? Should be 30. Yes, because we're going to add 2 and 3 together before we multiply by 6. 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 times 6 is 30. On the other hand, if we do 2 plus 3 times 6, in this case, multiplication is first. It takes priority in the order of operations. Therefore, we're going to get 20. 18 plus 2. 6 times 3, 18 plus 2. Okay, now this is a weird one. Hopefully you type this one in. Now you are thinking, if I type this into my calculator, I will certainly get 0.3. But the Python calculator is a little bit different. And this has to do with the way that the bits are interpreted. I'm not going to get into it. It's like you need a doggone PhD to explain it sometimes. But it's not important. It's just weird. I wanted you to see there's some weird stuff. It doesn't really matter all that much for what you guys are working on right now. Let's try out Bob plus Loblaw. Bob Loblaw. We get Bob Loblaw. Now that plus sign is called the concatenation symbol. Concatenation. That's this guy. Okay? So that plus symbol puts two things together. It's like it mushes them together, as you could see with Bob Loblaw. If I say Bob space plus Loblaw, I get a more normal looking string. But what if I say Bob plus 11? Well, that doesn't work because I cannot concatenate or mush together a string, Bob, with an integer, 11. But if I make 11 a string with quotes, that works. Or I can turn 11 into a string with the string function. Whoa, that works too. Okay, we'll talk more about those later. So anyway, let's move on. Jane times 2. Now you're thinking, can I do other types of math with strings? And the answer is yes, that will be Jane. But can I do Jane to the power of 2? No, because that doesn't make any sense. We can multiply strings out, but to the power of just doesn't make sense mathematically. Let's clear this out. Okay, last couple here. Jane times Bob. Can't do that. And Jane times 2.0. Can't do that either. So we can only multiply strings by integers because we can't get half of, or 2.5 of Jane. That doesn't make any sense, at least to Python. Okay, that is the first part of your homework. Pretty easy, right? We're just observing the results of our experiment. Kind of like science class. Computer science. Okay, see you for the next problem. Okay, it's time for an Easter egg. Okay, Okay, well, I guess that doesn't work on Replit. It's the first time I've ever tried it on there, I guess. But if you happen to download Python on your own computer, check this out. Whoa! This is XKCD. It's a pretty cool webcomic written by a former NASA physicist. Check it out if you like math, physics, programming, rockets, etc. That's the Easter egg. Goodbye.